Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Will Snyder. I'm a sales and charter broker with 26 North Yachts. We have a very special guest today, Doug West, who's the president of Lauderdale Marine Center, also known by its initials LMC. Doug has had a remarkable career. Before joining LMC in 2015, he was the longtime president of Rybovich Boat Company in West Palm Beach. And before that, he held senior level positions with both AutoNation and Blockbuster, all companies associated with Wayne Huizenga, the legendary billionaire businessman who is well known for being an astute judge of talent. So now Doug's the president of LMC, and I could spend the next 30 minutes reeling off mind-blowing statistics about this yard. The scale of their operations is truly extraordinary, but here's a quick rundown. LMC was acquired by the Carlyle Group in 2015. That renowned private equity firm has injected $35 million into the facility over the last 4 years, making them the largest yacht repair facility in the US and, by some metrics, the world. They're home to 5 mobile boat lifts, which can accommodate yachts from 75 tons to a whopping 485 tons. They also provide dockage with 206 slips available, including 2 miles of in-water dockage. As if that weren't enough, LMC made history by becoming host to the first marine foreign trade zone in the United States, but more on that later in the webinar. Given LMC's exposure to virtually every facet of our industry, we're eager to get Doug's insights this morning. And I know that Mike Carlson, co-founder of 26 North Yachts, has some pressing questions for Doug. But to you all who are viewing this, please ask your own questions as well using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Doug will spend the last 10 minutes of what is a 30-minute webinar answering any and all questions that you might have. And so with all that said, Mike, Doug, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Will. Thanks for the intro, and good morning, Doug, to you. And yeah, we appreciate you having, we appreciate you being on here. So to kind of jump right into it, I guess the first question as we've been going through these webinar series is kind of the obvious one, is sort of what steps has LMC been taking to handle sort of this COVID pandemic?
Well, back in, I think it was March 19th, we put together our COVID-19 plan and we submitted it to the city, and we had some dialogue with the city attorney, the city manager, and our city commissioner, Ben Sorensen. And after that dialogue, they approved the plan, and then we communicated that to all the contractors that do work in here and made sure that they all had a plan to follow for when they did work within LMC and they had employees on site. And basically, we really stepped up our cleaning and sanitizing. We required face protection for anybody that's going to be working on the boats and be exposed to crew members and or owners of boats. The crew members, we allow them while they're on the boats. They're not required to wear face protection, but if they're out in the yard, we require that from them as well. All the non-essential businesses that occupy office space here, we ask them to work remotely, and we have several of our employees that are working remotely as well. And we limited the work that was being performed on the boats to that work that is essential to maintain the value of the assets, which is basically the work that will keep the boat seaworthy and or life safety type work.
Has there been an increase in I mean, it's something that we've talked about in the past in other webinars. Just for one, I feel just the number of boats that are currently in Florida with not being able to leave for the Mediterranean or leaving for north. Have you seen at LMC an increase in boats at the shipyard, whether that's work being done or even just with dockage to include, hurricane season coming around the corner? Yeah,
in the month of April, our occupancy level was about 35% higher than it was in April of 2019. We had a lot of boats that arrived the last week of March, just trying to find a place to sit while we determine when the country and South Florida is going to be able to reopen. All of South Florida overall had about a 40% increase over prior year in the number of boats that came into the area.
Is there a specific size range that you guys are seeing more of right now? You know, I know that you sort of reserve half the yard for 100 feet plus, but as far as the work being done, you know, now is certainly an opportunity with the limited places to travel to have work done. Is there a size range that you're seeing more work than others?
There's work being done on all sizes of boats, but where we see most of it happening right now is in that 80 to 100 foot range. We had some ongoing projects with some bigger boats that are continuing on, but any new work that came in, it's more that 80 to 100 foot range.
What's sort of your outlook, Doug, for the next 6 months to a year in the yachting industry? I think, you know, the shipyards in Fort Lauderdale are certainly, you know, in a sense, like the heartbeat of the marine industry, just with everything coming in and out. What's your sense of the future?
Well, typically the way our cycle works here is May is a big maintenance and repair month as the boats get ready for their summer plans. We're starting to see some new projects come in, and we're getting inquiries for new boats coming in for May, but not nearly as many as historical years. We still have a lot of boats here, but the other thing that we're seeing is we're seeing some departures scheduled on the bigger boats. We have 8 departures this week, and boats that the owners want to use the boat, so that's a good sign. I don't think you're going to see a lot of boats go to Europe this summer. I think you'll probably see those boats go to the Northeast, and some will probably stay here in South Florida and get work done and get ready for the fall season.
The boats that are leaving, do you have any idea on where? I mean, are they just leaving just for right now, South Florida, or do you have plans to start heading north to the Northeast?
It's a little bit of both. We actually have 2 boats going on a ship that are going to Europe. We have a couple that are going up to the Northeast, and a couple that are going down to Miami, where owners live.
Okay. And Will mentioned in the intro, which I'd like to talk about, is the FTZ zone, which is the foreign trade zone. So essentially, what that allows is what's unique to LMC is for boats that are listed for sale or new boats being imported into the U.S., the foreign trade zone allows where you would traditionally see not for sale to U.S. residents while in U.S. water, a foreign flag vessel, meaning that if a boat's for sale and not for sale to U.S. residents in U.S. water, it legally could not be shown to a prospect buyer while it's in the U.S., whereas this allows the FTZ zone allows you to show the boat for sale to Americans. And then the same thing with importing new boats. There's import duties approximately 1.5% of the hull value, and then there's some additional fees on top of that. But LMC was the first shipyard to have the FTZ zone. Can you go through that and just sort of the added benefits in the process of getting that done, and why that's a pretty unique thing for Lauderdale Marine Center?
Sure. So as you said, the biggest advantage is allows foreign flag vessels to be shown for sale to U.S. citizens while they're here at the dock without going to a boat show. So that's advantage number one. Another advantage is once you enter into the foreign trade zone, you're allowed to cruise in U.S. waters for up to 120 days at a time for the purposes of expedition. So if you want to arrive into the foreign trade zone at Lauderdale Marine Center, and then you want to go up to the Northeast for the summer to show the boat, you can do that. You're technically still in the foreign trade zone. The only disadvantage there is the boat can't be used for recreational purposes, or it can't have guests on board while it's in a foreign trade zone. It's only crew members that can stay on board. Another advantage is you can introduce foreign parts into that boat while it's in the foreign trade zone and not pay import duty on those parts. You can also, if there's an interested buyer, you can close the transaction right at the dock in the foreign trade zone. You don't have to go into international waters to close the transaction.
How many slips do you have available for the FTZ zone?
Our whole facility is authorized, and we activate and deactivate based on demand. So right now we have 14 boats in the foreign trade zone.
Is that an increase from the past, would you say, or is that about average?
Over the last year, we've seen a significant increase in the use of the foreign trade zone. The first year and a half, we never had more than 2 boats at a time in foreign trade zone. Now we have at least 6 to 8 at a time minimum.
And then do you attribute that just to sort of more people knowing about it, or more of an, I would think too, especially right now, given that fewer boats are going back, fewer foreign flag boats are going back to Europe or other places, potentially there could be even more of a demand for the FTZ zone as more boats start popping, coming up for sale.
Right. So demand-wise, it was an education process. There were a lot of brokers, there were a lot of maritime attorneys that didn't really understand all the details and how it worked in the early days. But we've been good about having seminars and explaining to the yachting community how it works. And now and we're not the only one here. There are a few others in South Florida, and they're all seeing success in these FTZs.
Mm-hmm. And then sort of circling back a little bit, talking more about LMC, what are some of the advantages over other shipyards? Obviously here in South Florida, there's a lot of shipyards to choose from, but when you're looking at differentiating Lauderdale Marine Center from some of your competitors or just other shipyards in general, what would you say, what's the biggest differentiator?
There are a lot of differentiators, but the biggest one is we don't do the work. We have 20 contractors on site, and then we have another 400 local companies that we deal with, that we put through a vetting process, that do work on boats. So the boat gets to go direct with the contractor. So you're not going to have a markup from the yard. You're not going to have gate fees to bring contractors into the yard. You can bring in any of the companies that are on our authorized list. We don't limit who can and can't come into the yard as long as they meet our qualifications. In a typical full-service yard, they want to control the project. They want to do the work order through them, so all the billing for all the contractors is going to go through them. There will be markups on a lot of those contractor bills, or there will be gate fees. And they'll use the contractors that they want to use, not necessarily the ones that the boats want to use. So really the way to look at it is we're like a shopping mall, and you come into this boatyard mall, and we have several contractors on site, and then we have a list of many others that you can choose to do the work, so that you can negotiate the best deal, you can negotiate the best schedule, all those things that are important to the types of boats that we deal with here.
So you can use, the contractors on site or bring in your own. There's no issue with that, so long as they have proper insurance and meet your requirements.
Absolutely.
And do you guys, so for your on-site contractors, do you have a vetting process to ensure the quality work that's being done, whatever that may be?
Yeah, it's the ones that are tenants as well as the local companies. We first of all, we make sure that we have the right insurance. They have to have liability insurance in case there's damage to the property or to another vessel. They have to have ship repairs liability in case they cause damage to the boat that they're working on. They have to have a warranty program. They have to provide samples of estimates, and they have to provide an estimate up front to each boat. They have to provide us samples of schedules. They have to have a quality control program, and they have to have references if it's not a company that we've dealt with before. And those references need to be from vessels as well as one of our current authorized contractors.
Mm-hmm. What do you see, what type of work being done now is, do you see that's most prevalent? Is there a certain area that or a certain type of work that you're seeing more of?
Well, any work that you see in a traditional shipyard is going to occur here, but where the trade that we see probably the biggest demand for is painting, boat painting. We currently have 12 paint projects going on, and that's when we're in high season, we'll have close to 20 paint projects going on at a time.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And then also just as a reminder, so if there's anyone that's viewing has questions, feel free to put in the chat. Yeah, any of those questions. But looking ahead to Doug, in talking about sort of like the future, yeah, it's like more like the sort of the future outlook of the yachting industry. What are your what's your view on the future?
So as of today, it's a little difficult to tell, but we see, as we talked about earlier, we see a lot of boats here that are just sitting, trying to figure out what they're going to be able to do over the summer and further into the fall. So there's work that is on hold right now that typically would be done this time of year as they get ready for the summer season. We think that we're starting to get calls now from vessels that want to start doing some work, like we have a couple of paint jobs that want to come in. So we feel that work is going to start opening up over the next few weeks, and that work will probably continue through the summer, and people will start getting ready for their fall season. I think that we'll see some boats that will take advantage of not being able to use the boats that much this summer and take that time to get the work done.
And I know one thing that we talked about before, and I'm not sure if you're seeing so much of this right now, but looking back, during the 07, 08 recession, where owners started, we say mothballing or letting go of crew and essentially putting the boats away in storage. Is that something that LMC can, if there is an owner that just wants to kind of put things on hold right now, do you guys have the ability to assist with that? And if so, in what way?
Yes, we do. We, as we discussed, we have plenty of space. So we've had a few calls from owners that want to just haul their boat out, put it on the hard, and let it sit for a while. When it's on the hard, you need to do a daily check just to make sure all the systems are operating properly and there are no alarms. And we have the ability to do that in-house. So if there's a demand for that, we'll provide it. And we did see that back in the 2008-2009 timeframe. And there were a lot of owners back then because of the banking crisis. They didn't want to be seen on their boats, so they just, as we say, mothballed them and just put them in storage until things got better. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think people still want to use their boats. They're just not exactly sure how safe it's going to be to go to some of these different areas, and that's why we're seeing the decline in usage right now.
Yeah, I know on the smaller boat side, I mean, there's probably more boats on the water than I've ever seen on the intercoastal. So hopefully that will need to move forward. I think even on the sales side, the past couple of weeks, we've seen a pretty significant increase from inquiries to transactions happening as well. So I think, yeah, there's a lot of people getting antsy. And again, I think this is an opportunity during this downtime is to get, with you guys to get work done. It's sort of a time period where you can get that work done without having a full schedule ahead in preparation for the charter season or private uses as well. As things start.
Speaking of the sales, we actually had 2 surveys this week, sales surveys, which is typically one a week is as many as we see. And these were both boats over 100 feet.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's good to that's good to hear as well. So is that what you generally see is one, during sort of normal times, you would see one, say, haul out a week for a sale?
1 to 2, two would be max, but yeah. And you'll see a spike around boat show times, the Fort Lauderdale show, the Miami show, and the Palm Beach show. Right after those shows, you'll see a little bit of a spike.
Yeah, of course. Can you talk about, so Will had mentioned too, just sort of like the financial investment over the past number of years, in addition to dock space and the restaurant. Can you talk about a little bit about that and how that sort of changed LMC as well?
Yeah, the driver there was the slip configuration back in 2015 was 70% of the slips were for boats that were under 80 feet. And we saw an opportunity just based on the size of that market above 80 feet to reconfigure and attract more of those boats. So we reconfigured our hard space. We redid our marina to accommodate many more larger vessels. And then with that, the expectations when there's a crew on board, they need things to do. We added a crew gym, we added the restaurant and bar area, just to provide things for crew members to be able to do while they're in the shipyard. It's not a very fun time for a crew member to be in a shipyard. And then we also, we reconfigured a lot of our workshop and office space just to make it, to help attract the right kind of tenants in here that we're going to take care of these boats.
And have you seen that drive more boats as a result of that, driving more boats into the marina?
Yeah, we've had double-digit increases in arrivals, unique arrivals, every year since 2017.
Because it's right. So the boats that are in front of the restaurant in the marina area, that really is separate, where work is not allowed to be done in that area. So it does feel more like a marina as opposed to being in the shipyard.
Right. We had a lot of boats that would come here to get their work done, and then once the work was done, they would go to a traditional marina to get into trip mode so they could start preparing for the trip. They didn't want to be in the shipyard. So that area over by the restaurant, that is strictly marina. That we allow some work, but no constructive work over there.
Mm-hmm. What's currently the largest boat that you guys have at the yard now?
191 feet.
All right. Yeah, that's so Abby, I have a question from Don. He's asking, can you comment on big boat access to the Bahamas and other Caribbean ports right now?
What we know about the Bahamas is they are closed for arrivals. We think, based on what we're hearing, it's going to be at least the 1st of June before they open. But I don't have specifics. The other Caribbean ports, I know some are open. We've had a few arrivals from boats over the last few weeks that have come from St. Martin, St. Thomas, and boats were allowed in and out.
Are there any quarantine requirements from boats coming in from foreign ports currently that are landing in LMC? That
is not dictated by LMC. That's dictated by Customs. Okay. And from my understanding, if there are no signs of the virus shown, then there's not a quarantine required.
Mm-hmm. I have another question from Pete, which we have answered, and this may have been from before. He asked, have you seen reductions in crews or vessels being mothballed? So we did touch on that a little bit before, but yeah, just to revisit that, have you seen much of a reduction in crews?
Not really. What you see is a crew doing a lot of the work that they would do in a traditional shipyard period while other work is going on, but just crew work on a lot of boats. But there were very few boats that had a reduction in crew. Most of them kept most of the crew members on staff, the ones that are here anyway.
Yeah, another couple of questions. So why is LMC good for hurricane season?
So we're far enough up the river that the insurance companies consider us a safe harbor. So we're not going to get the brunt of the storms and the storm surge. And we just have put new docks in that they can withstand a Category 2 storm.
Mm-hmm. How does, and this is maybe a question for both you and I, is talking about how surveys are conducted now in a pandemic environment and what sort of safety measures are being taken throughout those surveys. And I can answer from from my side from a sales point, and maybe you as from a shipyard?
So on the shipyard side, we require face protection. And those of you that have been around when the survey is taking place, there's a lot of people and a lot of people getting very close to each other. So face protection is not negotiable. They have to have it on, just because it's going to be difficult to be 6 feet apart. Inside the boat, I can't really speak to that because I don't go in there during the surveys. But outside, we just make sure that people stay as far away as they can, and then they have the face protection.
Yeah, and then from a salesperson standpoint, I think it's similar. Yeah, we also require face protection, as well as limit, depending on the size of the boat, of course, is limit the number of people inside at once, but also knowing too where everyone's coming in from, because as you said, you have a lot of different, from buyers to sellers to captains, and kind of knowing everyone's travel history leading up to. But a lot of it, yeah, is just maintaining social distancing, making sure the interior is kept clean throughout and wiped down, and keeping that space. So yeah, that's we're coming up here on our time. Doug, is there anything else that you'd like to I'd like to add before ending this?
I don't think so. I appreciate you guys having us on. Good to catch up.
Yeah, I think it's a great to kind of hear more what not only what shipyards are doing and the activity that's happening, but also with Lauderdale Marine Center being as big as you guys are, and how what you're seeing during this time. So it's been great to have you here, and look forward to seeing you out there.
Absolutely.
I will second that, Doug. Thank you so much. That was really great. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Just to keep in mind too,
next week, we'll be speaking with Graham Lord, who's the founder of Fairport Yacht Services. Fairport is a best-of-breed firm in the marine industry, and I think that's going to be a great conversation we have with Graham. Fairport's focused on crew administration, technical support, documentation services, and financial administration. And we actually had the good fortune of having Graham come into our office to join us for a team meeting several months ago. And we peppered him with dozens of questions, which he graciously answered. And there's no doubt about it, he's extremely experienced and knowledgeable. And again, I think it's going to be a really riveting webinar. So we hope that you join us for that. It's going to be taking place at the same time, same place next week, Thursdays at 10 a.m. I would also point out that all of our previous webinars, including this one shortly, will be available on our YouTube channel. So we hope you check that out. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Thanks, Doug.
Yep. Thank you.